When the Israelites left Egypt, there were 600,000 men. Counting the women and children, it is estimated that more than 2 million people left with Moses. A month passed between the time they left Egypt and when they reached the wilderness of Sin, which has nothing to do with their conduct. Before reaching the wilderness of Sin, they reached the wilderness of Shur, where they experienced days with no water. Reaching Marah, they experienced days with bitter water. And arriving at Elim, Israel enjoyed 12 springs of water and 70 date palms. The Bible does not report any grumbling in this desert oasis. As soon as they left Elim and headed out into the wilderness of Sin, the whole congregation began to grumble again. Now their need was not water, but rather food. They accused Moses of bringing them out into the wilderness to kill them of hunger, even saying they would rather the Lord have killed them in Egypt around their pots of meat than starve in the desert. They had forgotten the oppression, but remembered the meat. Like us, they easily forgot the past and even romanticized the past when facing current challenges. Then and now, grumbling attitudes result from a difference between the way we perceive things currently are and the way we think things should be. The problem is that when we grumble, our perceptions of the past and the present can be distorted. This lesson is worth taking notes on because here we see that grumbling is a communicable disease. We are told that the whole community grumbled. A handful of grumbling people spread into an epidemic of grumbling among Israel. The same is true for our churches today. Grumbling can be destructive to any organization. But grumbling reflects a worse problem. It reveals a lack of faith for Israel and us. A grumbling spirit sees disaster rather than a blessing. Unbridled grumbling spirits allow the present circumstances to nullify our confidence in the future that God has for us. Look at Israel. These people had seen the miracles of God. They were only a month out of bondage, and already they're complaining, thinking that God had delivered them only so they could starve in the wilderness. Israel's grumbling reflects a weakness of their faith and a lack of gratefulness for the blessings of God. God tells Moses that he will rain bread upon these grumbling people, that they should gather only the bread they need for that day, except on the sixth day pick a double portion before the Sabbath. Moses, in conversing with Aaron, his public information officer, is either perturbed or perplexed, likely both. He tells Aaron to tell Israel that this grumbling is really against the Lord, the same Lord that a month earlier had freed them, and now they are grumbling. Modern leaders should take notes here. Communications is a key to leadership. Moses is traveling with more than 2 million people. He must communicate. Experience has taught me that groups this size, there's never a lack of information, but rather there's a lack of accurate information. Moses wants to provide some assurance that God has heard them and he will provide. So as Aaron begins to communicate with the people, a patient God responds graciously and not by rebuking. God demonstrates his presence with his people in their affliction and adversity. First, he reveals his glory to the Israelites by a special manifestation of himself in the clouds to lead them. And second, God provides the people with quail and manna to eat. This manna could be baked or boiled. It was nutritious. The manna was abundant. It rained from heaven. Appearing in the morning, it disappeared in the heat of the day. The manna was designed for them because it would not keep except when they had to do a double portion before the Sabbath. They could only gather their daily needs so that they had to trust that the Lord would continue to provide for them. Sometimes we are too focused on what we want, but lack a recognition of all of God's grace that he has granted. Leadership is a relationship built on trust. So as the Israelites expressed distrust, it indicates a lack of faith in God as a provider. even though God has already led them out of Egypt, performing miracle after miracle to do so. Not a day goes by that I can't find something to grumble about. But the more I mature, the more I understand that grumbling spirit is not good for me, that I should have a spirit of praise, for God has given me more than I deserve. This month I celebrate 20 years of survival from my heart attack. Now, I could grumble about the genetic code that God gave me that predisposed me to this potentially fatal malady. And for a second, I may have felt that way. But over years of prayer, I have expressed thanks for this strange blessing. It gave me more appreciation for the power of God. It helped me to witness for my own self the healing Him. And I am better because He stopped, made me lay still, and look at the awe of His grace. That's the lesson for this week. Have a great week.